Hello, I'm Richard Evans. I'm Regius Professor Emeritus of History at Cambridge University in the UK. And I'm Welsh by background, but I grew up in London on the fringes of the East End. And what got me interested in Germany was seeing all the bomb sites as a child in the 1950s. The rubble had been cleared, but the gaps in the rows of terraced houses were still there. And I wondered who'd done this and why. And that got me interested. And when I became a student, I got to Oxford University in the late 60s. And that was a time when German history and historians were just waking up after 2 decades of amnesia. And so I did a PhD on German history, on the long-term roots of Nazism and the reason why the German middle classes caved in to the appeal of the Nazis. So my interest continued. I became a university teacher in various universities. And in 1996, I was asked to be the lead expert witness for the defense in a libel defamation action brought by the writer David Irving against the American academic Deborah Lipstadt because she had called him a Holocaust denier and a falsifier of history, and that, he said, quite rightly, affected his income as a freelance writer and damaged his reputation. And so I was asked to come in to say, were these allegations true? And I spent a long time with research assistants going through his work and decided they were true, and the court agreed. There is a movie about this called Denial, um, starring Rachel Weisz, Tom Wilkinson, and Timothy Spall, which I can recommend. It's a very good representation of the action. So after that, one of the lawyers asked me, could I recommend a good book, a detailed history of Nazi Germany? I had to say no, I couldn't really. The really good ones were out of date, and the new ones weren't very good. So, as is the way of these things, I decided to write one myself, and it became, in the end, 3 volumes, a trilogy called The Coming of the Third Reich, The Third Reich in Power, and The Third Reich at War. And that was a successful book. It's a successful set of books. It's been translated into many languages. And I moved on to other subjects, including 19th century European history. But around about 2020 or so, I was approached by a TV documentary company called 72 Films, and they were making a documentary on the rise of Nazism, and that involved looking at individual actors, not just Hitler, but also Goering, Goebbels, and other leading people, and in fact, moving on from there to ask the question, why did so many Germans support Hitler? And that got me thinking about maybe this is a more interesting and a different way of writing about Nazism from my trilogy. Uh, After all, there'd been a huge amount of new documentary material released, diaries of Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister, for example, diaries of ordinary people, letters and biography, which used to be unfashionable in Germany because of the Nazi cult of the so-called great man. That had become respectable again. There were a lot of very good new biographies. So I decided to write a book, which has recently been published, and I call it Hitler's People, The Faces of the Third Reich. And this is a set of 22 biographies, beginning with Hitler himself, and then going down through the different levels of Nazism, through leading figures like Hermann Goering or Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, running the Holocaust, really. And then middle ranking people like Reinhard Heydrich or Adolf Eichmann, and then down to in the fourth part, a bottom level of Nazi perpetrators. And it's a study of why these people supported Hitler, why they continued to support him, and why they carried on, why they did what they did. And I hope that this is a book that will explore, what you might say, the human dimension of Nazism. These were not, became clear to me, demons or monsters. They committed terrible crimes, but in many ways, they were ordinary human beings. So that means the question is more difficult to answer as to why they became Nazis. And this is a book where I try and present the more sort of human side of these people and try and explain why, nevertheless, they caved in. I found out, for example, that they were not marginal individuals. They came from the mainstream of German middle class society. Many of them had the traditional German bourgeois accomplishments, like playing the piano, for example. Extraordinarily, Ernst Röhm, who was the leader of the stormtroopers, liked to portray himself as a kind of rough, tough soldier type. He was, in fact, shot on Hitler's orders in 1934, seen as posing a threat to the German armed forces. Röhm was quite a fine amateur pianist, apparently. Heydrich was an almost professional level violinist, and so on. And they came from the most respectable parts of middle class society. So that poses a question to us all. And the question is, if ordinary, respectable people like that could become Nazis and commit these horrible crimes, then what does that say about us? Do we have a bit of Nazism inside ourselves? What is it that prevents us from committing those horrible crimes which didn't prevent them? And I hope I've managed to explain that in the book, Hitler's People, and I hope that you enjoy reading it.